Hello everyone, this is Max, and welcome to another edition of Maximus Uncensored. Thank you for joining me. This is episode 7, and it's much requested, so I'm doing this for everybody that has been, basically asking me for several weeks now to do another episode of Uncensored. Okay, I'll do another episode of Uncensored. Here I am doing it on a special day, actually, because it's been a lot of fun. This has been an interesting week, and this has actually been a really interesting day. So we had our first public hearing with the auditors in Arizona and the Arizona State Legislature, though at least the leaders, Senator Fan and another senator. So it was open and it was covered. And so I just going to break it all down, what my takeaway was of it, and just give that to you. And I hope it helps, put things in perspective and simplify it. And I kind of cut through the chase so you don't have to sit there and listen to the entire hour and a half long broadcast. Although I suggest you do. I've listened to it twice. And here's my feelings about it. At first, it seems a little underwhelming, and then it gets really good. In fact, I'd say the best stuff actually comes in the last half hour. It's just like I would say maybe even the last 20 minutes. It just seems like it's a concentrated amount of info, and it may not seem like that important, but when you start kind of going through it and sifting through it, you kind of see it's actually significant. So let's start. I'm just going to, I'm going to cut to the chase with this one. And I assembled these notes. I want to just emphasize that to you, and I hope it, I'm just going to put it in my own words, and this is what I took away from it. Let's first of all talk about the fact that about 18 to 20,000 voters were immediately removed, according to the auditors, were immediately removed after the November 3rd election, which is a little unusually high, and they have no reasons for them being removed from the voter rolls in Maricopa County. About 4,000, a little less than 4,000, was in the 3,000 range. Voters were that voted in this election were registered after the October 15th deadline. Now that's just one example. There were probably other examples, but this was the one that was given. So you have almost 4,000, or at least in the 3,000 range, voters that voted that were registered after October the 15th that shouldn't have been allowed to vote, because that's in violation of state law. You have 11,000 voters that did not show up on the voter roll files. I found this very interesting. On November the 7th, that's 4 days after the election, but they've showed up on the December 4th files. Now that's a contradiction in the files. So and to be clear, they voted on November the 3rd. So these voters did not show up on the files of the voter rolls on the 7th, but suddenly show up on December the 4th. 7th of November, but show up on December the 4th. And it shows they voted. So that may be a clerical error, of course, but you need answers from the Secretary of State's office and the Maricopa County. Well, I would say you really need answers from the Maricopa County Board of Elections. You need their answers from them. And also, I would say the Maricopa County Recorder, who's no longer in office. That Democrat was defeated. A little footnote. Maricopa County voted in a Republican recorder on November the 3rd, but went for Joe Biden. That's another contradiction. It's like, okay, so people that were voting for Joe Biden also voted for a Republican in Maricopa County to be the recorder. So go for. Oh, by the way, in that Republican, he's sort of a semi-rhino, I say, because all of a sudden he's come out in big support of audits. I don't want to say this to people, so don't share this with anyone. I don't want people to follow my suit. But, what I would recommend doing to myself and my family is to give him a call or email him and make sure he does support the audit publicly and personally, even if he doesn't personally. But I don't want to tell people what to do. So, don't share that with anyone. That's just my personal opinion between me and you. Okay, that's what I would do. But I don't want to say that publicly. Okay. But anyway, so to get back to, I digress. The fact is that 11,000 voters show up on the files on December the 4th, don't show up on November the 7th, and they voted in the November the 3rd election. That means, what I took away from that too was the voter rolls, the files are updated every so often, every few weeks. It seems like they're updated, at least. Thousands of duplicate ballots did not have serial numbers on them. So, this makes sense. You have to write the serial number down of a duplicated ballot, so you have a record of the origin of the ballot, so part of the chain, and you can compare it to the original and make sure it's done right. Or the ballot can't be counted under state law. So if you don't have the serial number written on a duplicate ballot, you can't count that ballot. Now, this really troubled Ken Bennett, I guess he's the former Secretary of State. He spent, that's his early on, by the way, in the broadcast. So you can see it early on in the recording if you want to listen to him talk about it. He seemed very troubled. He said literally there were thousands of duplicate ballots that had no serial numbers on them. And many of them that did, you couldn't really read the serial number. It wasn't printed correctly. So those ballots were counted, is what he was saying, and they had no serial number. So there's no chain you don't know where they came from. They're just duplicate ballots, but you don't know. And the troubling thing here is you have no way of without the original ballot, and without some further data that they need, you can't tell how often those ballots were counted. There's really no way to do that. So, I mean, that's extremely, it was very troubling to him. He's a very conservative little c guy in this. He's not, the very dramatic who's going around saying there are millions of fraudulent votes or something like. He's not saying anything like that. He's a very kind of like studious, serious, sober-minded individual who's focused on real information and wants to get to the truth. I believe that's my personal feelings from observing him for weeks, but this was very troubling to him. The number was very troubling to him. You got a very shocked look on the face of the senators that were listening. Probably the most egregious thing of all was, and this came at the end. I don't know if this was. I listened to it twice. I heard this both times at the very end, but it appears like there were 74,200 plus ballots, mail-in ballots, that were not requested, that were counted and received. So you are always, let me say, you're always going to have more requested ballots than are returned. Okay. In this case, for Maricopa County, you had 74,200 and change mail-in ballots that were not requested but were received. So there's a discrepancy between two different files that they use to adjudicate that number, or to arrive at that number. Now, it could, like the guy said, it could, the cyber ninja dude there, he said there could be a clerical error, right? But if it is a clerical error, I mean, my question is, what type of idiots are running the Maricopa County elections? That's a huge clerical error. I mean, it could be, but then you really have to sit there and go, geez, what kind of idiots are running the recorder's office? Well, he's been fired by the people. And what kind of idiots were running it? And what kind of idiots are running the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, which handle the elections? Sometimes I call them elections. I mean, how do we know that the votes were counted correctly? The ones that were counted, right? How do we know they were counted correctly? I mean, if they were even legitimate? How do we know that they were verified correctly? There were questions about the signatures. Might as well just jump to that and say there were they had requested signatures from the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors. They didn't receive them. Signatures, the envelopes which contained the signatures of the people returning the ballots, so they can verify those. They do have statistical information, not even statistical, they have actually hard information that shows that, or we should say anecdotal, to me it seemed a little more anecdotal, that over time, the standard for verifying the signature was reduced and reduced and reduced until, according to the cyber ninja dude, the people, the ones that were counting the ballots, okay, the canvassing workers, or the canvassers, were being told to go ahead and count the ballots even if they didn't have a signature or if they didn't match up. Now, I don't know how true that is, but again, this is just raising more and more questions in that regard. In any case, I mean, going back to the 74,000 plus ballots, I'm just sitting there going, if that's a clerical error, the people running it are buffoons and idiots, and therefore you can't trust them for anything. That should just be a huge red flag. In any case, if that is verified, you have to throw all those ballots out. And this is not Rudy Giuliani or any of those people. This is serious. They can't be counted. Go back to what Bennett said earlier. Early in the broadcast, in the hearing, he mentioned several thousand ballots that had no serial numbers. They can't be legally counted, so you have to throw them out. The question of the voters, the number of voters and the voter rolls. I mean, when you start off with 18 to 20,000 people are just kind of like purged, were removed from the rolls. They voted on November the 3rd, and then within days they're purged. Did they just kind of like move into the valley, or take out a P.O. box number and sign up for, enroll and register to vote just for the election? I mean, yeah, these are this is not conspiracy theories here. Yeah, I don't do that. But this is all factual. This is a real forensic audit. And by the way, Sharpie Gate returned. I never was into this, but it was in a very awkward form, and the paper is supposed to be a heavy stock paper that's used for replacement ballots on election day. I mean, all the ballots are supposed to be very heavy stock. They're not supposed to be able to, soak through. And from the evidence that they were showing on the screen, it didn't even look like really a Sharpie. It looked like a regular ballpoint pen was just soaking through. Like someone just had a regular pen and it was just soaking through. And what that does is it creates overvotes, and the systems will reject those ballots. And if you notice the examples they put on the screen, they were votes for Donald Trump that had been rejected, apparently. We have to assume they've been rejected. And those are ballots, the paper that was used for those ballots were handed out disproportionately, or at least to show up for the day of vote. So the voting in person, if you would. And that's going to disproportionately affect, therefore it's going to disproportionately affect Trump votes, Republican votes. So, you can forget about the whole Sharpie thing, really. Just focus on the fact that the stock paper is not, and the thing is, it contradicts what Maricopa County is advertising, which is that they always use heavy stock paper that it won't soak through. No ink will soak through it. And apparently that's obviously false. So they were lying to the public, when they say that. But the thing is, how many of these votes were disproportionately affected? I was waiting for, I didn't think we would get really hard numbers. I thought we'd get something like this, and we got a lot, actually, today. I mean, we learned that enough votes are potentially questionable, or like clear, a lot of votes are questionable, and therefore potentially this could impact the results of the election. I'm going to be very objective when I say that. So let's be very objective here. Enough votes are in question now to change the outcome of the election. There's no doubt about that. The thing is, we have to know how these people voted. Now, it looks like this is going to another stage. I'm probably the first person that's going to say this, because I don't know if anyone else is really doing a lot on this yet. It's kind of early. This is just a few hours old, but it looks like they're going to do a canvassing. I don't know if anyone picked that up, but they talked a lot about doing a canvassing or recanvassing at the end. And this was the senators were talking about this because they asked, what is the remedy? And they kept coming back. The cyber ninjas and Bennett were inferring really a canvassing is the only way. Yeah, you can go to the post office and you can ask them if you can get any straight answers from them. I mean, the post office is the complete mess. They're a disarrayed mess, okay? So you actually think people that can't figure out how to deliver mail anymore from one, you could be living, how many of you have gone through this with the post office in the last year? Mailing a letter from one part of the city you live in to the other never gets there. Takes 2-3 weeks to get there. Have you had to deal with that? Because I've had to deal with that. So but you can go to them and ask them. I mean, I don't know if you're going to get a straight answer to account for those 74,000 ballots, but in any case, canvassing seems like that's going to be the solution. And in a canvassing, that is literally another way of putting it is an audit of the entire election process for the entire freaking state. Okay, and so I think that. I think that's the way they're going to go. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they're not, but I wouldn't be surprised if within a week or two we're hearing about a canvassing that's going to be ordered to the state. And let me tell you, when they do a canvassing, they're going to actually also go and interview the voters. So they're going to hunt down, for instance, start with the 11,000. The 11,000 voters that did not show up on the files, they have names for all those voters. This is not votes now without envelopes. We're talking about voters. They actually have, if you're a fraudulent voter, I used the F word there, sorry about that. The fraud word, right? I rarely use it. But if you're a person that did something you weren't supposed to do in Arizona, they've got your name. So they're very interested in the people that it was obvious that voted but weren't on the rolls, but then appeared on the rolls miraculously. Or how about the ones that registered after the 15th of October? Or how about the 18 to 20,000 that were immediately purged? Why after the election and not before? If there were real legitimate questions about whether they should be purged, maybe they're deceased or maybe they moved or whatnot. That's a lot of people to suddenly, move out of Maricopa County in a matter of a few hours. I mean, a few days, few hours. So, I mean, they're canvassing. They're going to literally go to those homes, and heck, if the Biden, his fraudulency, I don't call him president. He's not my president. I respect the man, wish him well and everything. I believe in praying for our leaders, but I don't respect him in that regard, so I refuse. Everybody knows that about me. But his fraudulency, you're going to go, he wants to send people door to door to check on your medical, I'm going to say your medical status, right? If you've received a certain JAB, but why not then go to people's homes and check on these voters? So I think that's going to, I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they do. They're going to, of course, they can look at the data from the Secretary of State's office. I think they'll take that avenue approach that first, but this is a huge undertaking. If they do a recanvassing of either Maricopa County, all the voters, it's going to be included in that, or the state in mass. I think it'll be focused on Maricopa County, but I mean, we may be seeing this drag on a little further than we anticipated. However, I still want to stay with, unless we hear something official along those lines. They were obviously talking about it, so go back and watch the video, and you tell me what you think. But I think I think it's called for, but I don't know how that affects them releasing their early data. Apparently, look, they're not doing all of this, and they're not talking about these numbers, and they know what they've seen, and without knowing how the final total, and of course they're doing the machine recount, by the way. I think they started it yesterday. So they're in the middle of doing the machine recount. Let me explain this to people so they understand. This is the third recount, because the hand recount, the forensic audit counted as one. And this is just a machine recount of the total, just so they have another statistic to use. And we already know, everybody's heard this already, this is last week's news, that the total between what the total number of ballots from what the forensic audit showed versus the actual official tally was significant. And I think that, of course, is where the 74,000 comes in, of course, and possibly other votes that they didn't talk about. So we don't really know what the final numbers to what their number of the votes showed. We don't know that. They didn't talk about that today. And I mean, for all intents and purposes, we're still looking at next month and probably early next month. Now, we've, like I said, been saying for days we were going to get something within a week. We did. We got something really big. But if it was bigger than in my opinion, than the 74,000, I think everyone kind of zeroed in on that, which, if I'm not mistaken, came very late. I didn't hear it early on. I was taking a lot of notes, and I'm always doing 6 things at one time. But I mean, it came very late, as that guy drilled into it, that Cyber Ninja dude. And the thing is that I thought there were other things that were just, in my opinion, very interesting when it came to just offhand. I mean, 18 to 20,000 people, why were they purged? And then why was 11,000 voters not logged into the file, but allowed to vote on the 3rd? How did that happen? But then I got to the thing is, look, if you make a clerical error, and that could very well be, I'm playing devil's advocate, if you make a 74,200 and something odd clerical error in the numbers in the ballots that have been requested, that section of your file, and that's all you do is just file stuff, then I wouldn't be surprised if you forgot to file voters, if you just left them out, and then oops, they voted, and then and for some reason there was nothing to catch them, that they weren't registered. Makes you kind of wonder about the safety and the security and the integrity of not the machines, but the day of voting. I mean, if you're not showing up on the voting rolls, shouldn't there be like some system in place to prevent you from voting until you can verify that you're an actual voter? Or how about this? Shouldn't there be something in place not to count your ballot until it's verified that you're registered, to prevent someone else from accessing a ballot, filling it out, and sending it in your name? I mean, these are just things that kind of crossed my mind. I was thinking, if you're making that kind of a mistake in this area, then there are obviously plenty of mistakes here, though. There's just all these different questions. So whoever was running this didn't know what they were doing, or they knew what they were doing, and what they were doing was nefarious. I just want to say this to you too, and then I'll finish up with this. We need the routers, the passwords, the images, the mail-in ballots with the signatures, the envelopes. We need all that information. And Maricopa County is just ignoring these requests. When is the state legislature going to order the Capitol Police, swear out warrants to access that information? Literally go in and confiscate the routers, confiscate the passwords, all the data, all the information that they're not getting. And if they get anyone standing in their way from the county or any of their friends, cite them for obstruction of justice. When is that going to happen? I think people need to contact the state legislature, fan on down, with all due respect. They're doing a great job. Love these people. They're wonderful. Respectively, I think people need to reach out to them and sort of demand that. I know, I mean, that's just me. That's my opinion. That's my humble opinion. Okay? My humble opinion on that. Anyways, that's Max's opinion on what went on today, and I did this on a fly. This is episode 7. It was much requested. Thank you for being such a great fan. I really appreciate it. Make sure now you are subscribed to my Telegram. It's at Maximus _4 EVR. Telegram gave me my official Twitter handle, the same handle. And by the way, I'm the same account on Getter, on Parler, on Gab, on Twitter. Getter was nice. I have a verified account there, I have a verified Gab account. They actually reserved those for me when they gave them to me. They're really nice people, the ones in charge. Twitter, of course, at Maximus _4 EVR. Follow me, subscribe to me. The Telegram is where I post things. Some people ask me this all the time. I can't post things I post on. I mean, I post a lot of different things on Telegram, but a lot of what I post on Telegram, I can't post it on Twitter and elsewhere. You can't. Big Tech doesn't like it. That's why I tell people to go there and check my Telegram. Plus, I'm not limited in characters. It's just open. So if you don't have a Telegram account, crying out loud, get one. That's my opinion. You should get one. But that's just because I like it. I'm only telling you that because I like it. But it's useful. But make sure you're following me there. It's Max Uncensored in a sense, And also, I'm going to tell you guys something else too, and you should be doing this, and we already got a ton of people coming. Next week, that's July 23rd to the 24th, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific Time, my seminar, Civics Maximus 201, Keeping the Republic. Keeping the Republic. Do you want to keep the Republic? Do you want to learn how to keep the Republic? Do you want to learn what the Republic is? This is an ongoing series of civics courses that I'm doing online exclusively, where I'm going to be in this one here, 201, which is the second one, where we're going to be discussing Articles 1, 2, and 3 of the Constitution, the legislative process, the powers of the president, the role of the Supreme Court. We're going to be talking about the Founding Fathers. We're going to be discussing also the status of state election reform in 17 states. 17 states have passed 28 bills for election reform into law. So we're going to be discussing that information next week. And it's Friday, Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. If you want to sign up, contact me, contact the Angels. If you don't know who they are, it's Roxy and it's Eyes and it's Verum and it's Bree, and it's Haley, and Nicole, and all of them. Just contact them, and ask them, or contact me and tell me you want to enroll, you want to sign up for it. How do you do it? I get people doing that all the time. My civics courses are a lot of fun. In fact, and what I'm doing now, what I started in the last one, 101, is After Hours with Max. And how would you like to just hang out with me after hours and ask me whatever questions on your mind? I'm starting to do that. Day 2, we'll probably hang out. The courses usually run about 3 to 4 hours each day, especially day 2. And we go over, and then we always discussing. This is not a lecture. This is a Socratic discussion. So if you want to get into it with me, you want to ask me a lot of questions, you want to debate with me, you want to learn civics and American history, hey, join one of my civics courses, and I have one next week. This is going to be the last one I do for a while, because then after that, on August 26th to the 28th, is my next history seminar, and that's going to be Outlaws, the illustrated life and times of the gunfighter. And if you like the Old West, if you like gunfighters, if you like guns, if you like stories from Billy the Kid to Doc Holliday to Wild Bill, I mean, you name it, we're going to be discussing these figures. These were countercultural, infamous figures that rebelled, I should say, against society. And why were they like that? We're going to delve into their psychology as well. It's going to be very interesting. We're going to talk the history of the Lincoln County War. We're going to be talking about Tombstone, but not the wider perspective. We're going to take the Outlaws perspective, and Doc, of course, who was an interesting figure. I mean, this is but this is going to be really good. We're going to be talking about these figures, and it's going to be really interesting. So if you're interested in history, and especially the Old West history, and you like cowboy movies or gunfighter movies, Old West pictures, anybody ever see Silverado? This is going to be the course for you. And then in September, we'll be doing Civics Maximus 401. I'll be talking anti-federalism. Definitely want to catch that. I appreciate it if you guys can support me. There's a link at the bottom there. So I do this gratis for you guys, and anything you throw my way, I would appreciate it, tips or whatnot. Thanks again for everything. You're wonderful people. I really enjoy just the camaraderie, the interaction, the engagement. I'm really shocked at the number of people that subscribe and follow me. It's very humbling, and I love yous all. You guys take care of yourself. God bless yous, and I'll see you around the campfire. Ciao.